What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Long Distance Friends. Today, I am so excited. I have my new long distance friend, Erin Randol, mental health therapist from Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I found Erin on TikTok, and I was scrolling TikTok one day because I was like, I need to learn more about mom rage because I am just shocked at how I am a mom that deals with mom rage. And so I was scrolling TikTok one day. I came across Erin's videos, and Erin was hands down by far the best person that I have seen on social media who has given practical tips for how to actually, in the heat of the moment, deal with mom rage. I was so grateful I found her. I immediately went to her website and downloaded her mom rage guide. And I reached out because I was like, I need her to come on my podcast. I need everybody I know to know who she is. And I am just so grateful, Erin, that you came on today. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for hanging out with us today.
You're welcome. That was the sweetest introduction I've ever had. That was so kind. I could talk about mom rage all day long. So I'm so glad I found someone who speaks my language and wants to share this information with other people who could benefit from it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you again. So I'm going to rewind to when I was postpartum with my first daughter. She's 3 now. But the very first time that I experienced something like mom rage was, and I did not even tell you about this, so we may have to,
You're fine.
I did not even tell you about this, Erin. But when I was breastfeeding her during letdown, I would experience intense feelings of anger and intense feelings of loneliness. And I've heard some moms go through that where it's like only during letdown and then it's over. But I would just get this wave of really bad anger. Like I just wanted to punch a wall or something. And then that's the first time I noticed it. And then as she started to get older and older, and then that 18 months is a really hard time frame for me because you're wrangling them.
Yeah.
I mean, they have all these thoughts and feelings, but they can't talk. And so
Right.
and so that is where I really started to notice it, where I would just feel like something would come over me. It was like the Hulk. It was like instantly activated. And I was like,
Yeah.
I am so mad. And I'm like, who is this person? And so that's a little bit of my personal experience. But for you, at what point in your career or even your personal life did you realize how prevalent mom rage is? How many moms experience mom rage? And how would you actually define it? Because I know mom rage is different than just, getting angry sometimes, right? So how would you define it, and how many moms actually deal with this?
Yeah. So the first time that I think I even knew mom rage was a thing was when I started my own personal therapy after having my third child, which was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And she just really helped me label what was happening. I don't even know that she ever used the term mom rage in our sessions, but I think just being able to speak my experiences to another clinician in that kind of safe way helped me realize how angry I was. I was so angry. And mine was not just during letdown. Mine was pretty persistent. And so, yes, that's when I probably realized that this was becoming debilitating. And it was worse than the first 2 kids. I don't think I knew what it was back then 10 years ago. So I would say after I had my third kid, which was about 3 years ago, I started to notice that I felt very, very angry. And then to answer your question about how many moms experience mom rage, I don't know that there's a super firm number. In fact, I Googled that question before we met today because I don't know that there is a number. And the closest thing I can find is what I anticipated to find, which is the number of moms that experience postpartum, or they might call it perinatal mental health issues, which means mental health issues that you have in conjunction with pregnancy or the postpartum period. And mental health issues in perinatal postpartum is about 20% of women, 1 in 4, 1 in 5. I would lean towards 1 in 4 personally. And so with that, comes postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and then one that I would say is lesser talked about, postpartum OCD. And so I think out of that 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 women who have perinatal mental health issues, rage could be anywhere in any of those. I would say that I do see it the most in postpartum OCD.
Okay. Okay. So unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
What is postpartum OCD?
Oh, that's a good question. So
I'm so curious.
yeah, I've been learning a lot in the past few years. I've had a passion for mental health for moms since about COVID, but this specific niche of mom rage has really blossomed in the last like 3 years for me. So postpartum is the period that I would say up to 2 years, if not more than that, after we give birth can be a postpartum period. And then within that period, we experience obsessive compulsive disorders. When I think about OCD, there's a couple things that I think are important to notice. It's one of the most missed diagnoses out there because people are like, oh, it's anxiety, because postpartum anxiety is very common and well known. So OCD does have a little different twang to it, and it can be missed, and I call it sneaky. It's a very sneaky disorder, and it can pop up like a banshee in postpartum and pregnancy, but you could have had it before you were pregnant and it got amplified after pregnancy. A lot of different things could be happening with OCD in postpartum and all the postpartum mental health issues. So postpartum OCD specifically here's what I'm going to describe it as. I'm going to take the clinical jargon out of it and just tell you what the symptoms look like when it's OCD versus anxiety versus depression. So depression gets confused with baby blues, and there can be rage in that, but that's part one, and that's not what we're talking about today specifically. Mom rage can be in baby blues and postpartum depression, but we're not talking about that just yet. And then postpartum mom rage can be in postpartum anxiety, and it can be, and it is, but anxiety and OCD look different, and here's how I kind of explain it, or I like listen for it in my own clients. Anxiety usually gives us like worry, and OCD says like there's a threat and you should be terrified, which is like a slightly different monster. They look the same, but there's a slightly different monster. That's one way to think about it. Another way to notice that it's OCD is it's impulsive, it's reactive. Anxiety can kind of say like, well, what if blah 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 blah, and rattle off a bunch of what ifs that are really scary. And OCD is kind of like, oh no, I'm gonna throw my baby down the stairs. Like it is gonna happen, right? So there's just a little bit of a different twang to it. And so the reason that I think I see mom rage in postpartum OCD the most is because we're getting an obsession of some sort. Our body is perceiving that there is a threat in our environment of some sort, and we must do a compulsion to follow that so that our body can find safety again. And for a lot of people, the compulsion is rage.
Okay. So it's interesting because I do wonder how much these are linked, because I'll share me, like my personal example is I have trichotillomania, which means that it's a body focused repetitive behavior. I've had it since high school. And for me, it's really activated when I'm trying to focus on something or really focus in on something. And so like when I'm doing homework or if I'm really like studying or anything like that, I will start to pick out my hair. And specifically, it's hair that is like thicker or doesn't quote unquote belong with all the other hair, which is funny. Like it's just weird, right? Like it's like when you bite your nails and you're trying to get your nails down. Like instead of biting my nails, I pull my hair. And I have done that since high school. It got really bad in college. And then afterwards, now it's more manageable and yada yada. But I know that about myself, and I've never really made it a big deal because I've always kind of just likened it to nail biting. But now that I've seen the mom rage pop up, and since you and I were talking a little bit before, and you said, well, sometimes it's linked to OCD. I was like, oh, like maybe there is something there,
Dynamic.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
Yes. I really appreciate you sharing that with me because it's one of those things that people don't know a lot about. And but so when I think about OCD, they say there's like one thing is OCD. It's an obsession followed by a compulsion in our diagnostic manual kind of thing. But it does get a little sneaky and like a hidden monster because we call them like brands of OCD. And one of the brands of OCD that a lot of my mom rage folk get, and what you're kind of describing, I call it just right OCD. It's not just right. My hair doesn't feel just right. My body doesn't feel just right. The air is too itchy. It doesn't feel just right. And it could be as simplistic as like the traditional, like, oh, I like things a certain way on my desk, but it can get pretty deep and it can become not just annoying, but I call it like an internal disturbance. It creates an internal disturbance
Yeah.
if we can't get it just right, or if we can't get our environment to not feel threatening or comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Got it. So if we're zooming back out to mom rage as a whole,
Yeah.
are there any other misconceptions that you would like to address that you feel like people just kind of get wrong about mom rage when they think about mom rage or hear mom rage?
Yes, I love that question. The very first thing that comes to my mind is it does not get treated like traditional anger management would get treated.
Interesting.
It's not traditional anger. And so
Wow.
this is going to sound a little counterintuitive, but one of the things I actually put in my notes is the mom doesn't necessarily need coping skills to manage her mom rage. She needs support to manage how her body directly or indirectly is feeling a threat or a lack of just rightness. And I don't know if this is making sense. I know it gets a little deep. She doesn't necessarily need anger management. She needs ways to support her body so that she can find her center again. She needs ways to get desired sensory input and feel supported in a hard moment that's not habitual and reactive. Her body
Okay.
needs to come back down to center because there's this huge internal disturbance going on without her permission and without much warning, usually either. She doesn't really need coping skills to manage her anger, which sounds counterintuitive because they are, at the end of the day, a style of coping skills, but not the traditional sense, right? There's one therapy model, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, that has these really cool and effective acronyms for coping skills. DEARMAN. D is describe the problem. We're not describing shit in mom rage. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? DBT skills are super helpful for a lot of people. I don't teach DBT to my mom rage clients, like ever. Not from the get-go. Not if it's as severe as most people come to me with it being so severe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So one day I was at the park with my girls. They're 3 and 1 for reference, and I'm fully at home with them. And we were at the park this day, and we had just come from the doctor's office. We had made it together, pulled it together, got through the whole event. I was like, okay, we're going to go to a park. We went to the park, and my toddler was just not listening, and she wanted to do her own thing. And I know that I struggle with this, right? And so I'm like talking to myself actively. I'm like, it's okay. Take deep breaths. Take deep breaths. Like do your box breathing. It's going to be okay. And then we get to the car and I'm like, okay, we need to go because I am just getting so annoyed, so annoyed. And I know that this is happening in my head. I'm
fair.
literally talking to myself as this is happening, coaching myself like, okay. And then she did something or said something and I just snapped. It's crazy to me how you can know it's happening to you. And like,
Yeah.
this is before I found your guide,
Right.
And then I found your, and then I found your guide. And then I started in those moments when I notice that rising in me, I started doing the bilateral tapping.
Yep.
And for those listening, you've never heard it, Erin can probably explain it better than I can. but you basically cross your arms, put your hands on your shoulders, and and it's rhythmic, right? So you
That's
do
right.
tap, 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 just back and forth.
That's right.
And it was like instant,
Yeah, it
like
does help.
someone is giving your brain a hug. I don't know how to explain it other than that, but it's like your brain waves are like going crazy, and then all of a sudden it's calm, or maybe not calm is the right word, but it just like unlocks. It feels like it just unlocks something. And
Yes.
so, can you talk more about bilateral tapping? What is actually happening in our brains, and why does it work so well?
Yeah, so it kind of loops me back to a mom doesn't need traditional coping skills for her rage. She needs desired sensory input. She needs support for her body and her environment. And that bilateral tapping thing is really cool for so many
Yeah.
reasons. So, and there's different variations of it that I don't really even get into in my guide. I think I have some on my TikTok videos, but it comes from a lot of places, a lot of research and science. The biggest one that I first learned it from is a therapy called EMDR, eye
Yep.
movement desensitization reprocessing. And I had that training back in COVID times. And I started to, over time, which is about 6 years now, realize that tapping can be safe and very effective in a lot of moments outside of like EMDR protocols. So it allows your right brain and your left brain to talk to each other because they're not. Emotional brain will always have more horsepower than your logic brain when we get into these kind of states. It's kind of similar to fight, flight, or freeze. When we're in fight, flight, or freeze, we're usually down in our brain stem, or some people call it our lizard brain, and we're not really getting much access at all to our prefrontal cortex. And your poor body, it's called like the mind body connection. Like your poor body doesn't know what to do to help you. And your brain isn't going to be, as much as I appreciate you trying to coach yourself through it at the park that day, it usually falls short because you're trying to use your prefrontal
Yeah.
cortex and your brain's like, burr, burr, alarm, alarm, and threat, threat. You know, it's back to that we were just talking about. Your body feels threatened, either a perceived or a real threat. Our body doesn't know the difference. It does not care. It is a threat either way to your
Wow.
body, and it's going to respond as if we need to fight, flight, or freeze. So the tapping does a lot of beautiful things to regulate our brain, and it's like lighting up left side, right side, left side, right side, whatever you can add that tapping. And you can make it's one of those things that you almost can't get wrong. Like you can tap as hard and fast as you
Yeah.
want. You can tap as light and slow
Right.
as you want. You can tap on your knees. You can tap on your steering wheel. Anything that gives your left side of your body, then your right. Left side of your body, then your right is a beautiful thing to offer yourself in those kind of moments.
Wow, that is so fascinating.
Yeah.
So fascinating. And that makes so much sense. I love what you said about like you're trying to logically talk to your body or talk to yourself when that's not what it needs in that moment, or that's not what
Yeah.
you need in that moment.
Well,
That
and
makes so much sense.
yeah, yes. And another way to say it that might also support your experience is like our brain goes offline. That's another way to say it. When your brain goes offline, you can't typically use your brain to get back online super quick. So we try and talk about the mind-body connection, and we use our body to support our holistic being so we can come back to center, find that rhythm again. When we can find that rhythm again, then we can usually find words. If we can find words, then we can label our experience. And if we can label our experience, then our prefrontal cortex can come back online and be like, oh, of course we're dysregulated. I feel overwhelmed and I want to make sure my kids are safe, and it's almost nap time and I'm a little worn out.
Yeah. Wow. Golly. I do feel like sometimes too, there's the shame or the rage that follows when you have like an episode or whatever. When it's like you do lose your crap.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, I should be able to do this. You know what I mean? And I think that's a whole nother thing, being kind to yourself and having grace for yourself, because there's like, it's almost like a secondary wave of like, like I did it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So
I wonder if this summarizes what you're saying. So, panic attacks are maybe more widely known or more common as far as a labeling of a mental health diagnosis than OCD flare-ups might be. So I'm going to use panic attacks as an example for a second. And what happens is our body gets super dysregulated. We can maybe feel it coming, but once it's here, by golly, it's here. And we don't feel like we can get out of it. Panic attacks can be debilitating, which I agree that OCD flare-ups are debilitating to a lot of people too. But let's use panic attacks. They're debilitating. And then even after they're over, I call it a panic attack hangover. There's a period where we don't come straight back down to our baseline mood. We don't come straight back down our crisis mountain. And I feel like there's an OCD flare-up hangover. That is obviously not a clinical term. I just made that up one day, and I feel like it describes what people experience because you don't come right back down from it.
That makes sense. Okay, so for those moms listening and for me listening who were actively dealing with this, are there any other tools or things that we can implement, whether that's in the heat of the moment or before, so that we can sort of have our toolbox ready for when we start feeling this coming? Anything else that you would add to that?
Yes, man, I could go on and on about this. I keep coming back to labeling, and I know that probably feels oversimplistic, but it is really step one, in my opinion. We have to understand what's happening in our world so that we can move into the right direction of support that we need. So if we, without going into maybe all the clinicalness behind mom rage, and we're just talking about, I am there, I am raging, it needs to come back, and I don't know how to come back to life or get back online, as we were saying earlier, then these are some things that I would recommend. One I talk about a lot, I think I talk about it in my mom rage guide, is humming. So there's something about humming that I think it activates our vagus nerve, which is a big one in our system to help us regulate. And I would specifically recommend low, deep humming. I always compare it to when Dory speaks whale in Finding Nemo. That deep kind of humming, do it. If you can do it right before a moment or in a moment, it can give your body a different sensation than just pure discombobulation and internal disturbance. It gives you something else to focus on. It starts to bring in that desired sensory input we've been talking about. And it's kind of like the bilateral tapping. You can't do too much of it. There's not too much humming that will hurt you. Unless you get annoyed by your own self, I guess, and want to stop humming. But there's not actually anything in humming that is going to cause more harm to what you're experiencing. And what I really love about my journey with making mom rage and postpartum mental health my clinical niche is I've been telling people about this humming thing for a while. And then one day, I don't even remember who it was, but somebody was like, oh, that's what my doula told me to do when I was in labor. Is start humming.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my, I'm a C-section epidural girly, so I didn't have any of that. But I was like, of course she did. Like, duh, Erin, right? Like, of course she did. That makes so much sense. And I guess I want to hand that example to my mom rage people because it's just, you're not trying to be ragey when you give birth. You're not asking for those emotions when you give birth. It's something happening to you without your permission. It's something happening to you without your permission. It's not your fault. And now all we get to do is label that it's happening and figure out how to support ourselves. And so I think that's similar to giving birth. Yeah. I was so excited, for lack of a better term, when somebody was like, that's what my doula said to do. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's all coming full circle.
Activating that vagus nerve. Yes. We love it.
Yes, that's exactly right. Some other things that are pretty like quickie, like right in the moment of rage, is changing your body temperature. So I would say most always, if not always, our body temperature rises when it gets hotter, whenever our blood starts pumping and we start to feel that rage. So if you can adjust your body temperature and cool it back down, it's usually like a winner. So there's a lot of cool ways to do this. One, my favorite, honestly, is to keep like a Yeti or a Stanley or whatever you prefer, a drink that will keep, a cup that'll keep your drink ice cold throughout the day if it can, specifically in a cup that you can keep next to you that has a straw. And if you start to feel yourself getting dysregulated, not even rage mode yet, you can do this in rage mode totally, but even outside of rage mode, if you can notice that you're getting irritated and give yourself, like, I'm going to take a drink of water. Or if you can not get too habitual about it, you can even be like, I'm going to take 3 drinks of this water before I react to this. And it helps with your breathing. It slows you down because you make that sucking motion through the straw. It gives you ice coolness to cool down your body. And then a lot of us are like breastfeeding. A lot of us are dehydrated. And so we need the water
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
That's a great one. I feel like that
Yeah.
checks a lot of boxes. And it's easy, right?
Yes, that's what we're trying
Have
to
your
do.
water
Easy.
with you.
Yeah. Right. And it's funny you say that because sometimes I do get, what's the word? Like, I'm like, man, am I just telling people things that are so overly simplistic and acting like it's this big, great idea, right? But I've noticed over the years with my work that the most simplistic things are out the window in postpartum. The most simplistic things don't occur to us when our brain has gone offline.
100%.
So I think having your ice water near you is a great one. And then I would say another one is going back to that rhythm thing. So there's a lot of cool ways to do this. It can be as simple as clapping. Or stomping. Like if your hands are full with a kid, you could, I wouldn't say stomping like aggressively as much as I'm just talking about like finding a rhythm as if you're walking on a treadmill or something. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right? And then your body finds its rhythm again. Or if your baby is sitting in your lap, you could put your hands over their hands and playfully like clap together. Anything that offers rhythm is a beautiful thing. And back to like that desired sensory input, if you can't get to ice cold water, it's sometimes like open a window, turn on your ceiling fan. If you're in your car, see if you can turn your vents on, air conditioning. I don't care if it's winter. Like just for a minute, just give your body a little shock and reset it down just a notch. And again, you might have a mom rage hangover. A blast of cool air from your car vents isn't going to put you back into peaceful, loving mom right away, but it will diffuse, is a big word we talk about in therapy. It will diffuse the reactiveness in your body and help you kind of come back down in a way that you can respond in a way that's more intentional and more loving, that kind of thing. That's the goal. That's what we're going for.
I love how all of these examples that you give are so accessible.
Yeah.
Changing your body temperature, opening your window, drinking a glass of water, tapping your body, like walking, like holding your baby's hands and doing it as you're doing it, because these are all things that you can do no matter where you are, right? And I love that. That's so helpful. And it makes a lot of sense looping back to what we were talking about earlier with, I guess it's just like a light bulb moment for me, how all of these things are not talking to yourself. Like I try to do in vain sometimes. It's not logical. It's completely focused on your body. So this is a light bulb moment for me right now as we're talking about this.
Yeah, actually, we could go there for a second because there is a really good point. So another thing that might be a little different between, and I am not suggesting that all mom rage means you have OCD at all. But one thing that falls short sometimes with mom rage interventions, if it is OCD generated or just maybe even has, let's call it like OCD tendencies to it, is it's not like reframing or trying to push a thought away or stuff like that. It usually falls short. So when we do mom rage interventions and everyone's trying cognitive behavior therapy, reframing, giving ourselves affirmations, of course you are. That's what we're taught. And those are good frontline defenders. And then we're feeling like there's something wrong with us because it's not working. And why can't we just blah, blah, blah? Why can't we just stop being so, what's wrong with us? Da, 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 da. So it's because that thought is loud and it's sneaky and it runs the show without our permission. So talking to it might not get us too far, but you could still do a variation of it. So instead of like, it's okay, everything's okay, we're going to the park, I'm okay, good intentions, but maybe it's actually like, whoa, this is getting really hard today. Or like, wow, I'm starting to feel anxious. instead of trying to convince our body that we're something that we're not, we kind of practice this like acceptance and like leaning into, I would even call it mental flexibility, to say, like in cognitive behavior therapy, they might call it like reframing. But I think in mom rage world, it's more like mental flexibility, because I don't need to reframe that you actually have a reason to be disappointed that your husband forgot the diaper bag. I don't need to reframe that for you. That's an appropriate emotion. But the emotion is getting too intense for what's manageable or appropriate. And that's where we get feeling yucky. It's appropriate usually that we feel overwhelmed, that we've done doctor's appointments and park dates and we're ready to go home. That actually makes sense to me. But what's happening is that our reaction and our ability to manage that emotion is getting outside of our ability to manage. So then it's like, of course I feel overwhelmed. This has been a long day already. Of course I'm starting to feel irritable. This is what my body does when it doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's still, you can still do some self-talk around it for sure. But that wouldn't be something I recommend for brand new people trying to work on their mom rage for the first time, because it usually like makes their shame louder. Like, Erin told me to just, accept that I was feeling that way, but I just lost my crap again and 0 to 60. So that's why I start with like the bilateral stimulation and the water and the body temperature stuff. And then we can start to move into, oh, it's coming again. Oh, I feel that sensation and that disturbance again. Okay, yeah, of course I do. I'm feeling really overwhelmed today. That kind of thing. And another thing that I think is tied in some way to mom rage is the urge to fix or fight. That's what I call it. We have an urge internally to fix or fight and we're fixing or fighting whatever feels directly or indirectly threatening to us. So when we get that urge to fix or fight, and that urge to fix or fight, the threat that's dominating your thinking patterns or the threat that's kind of dominating your emotions and your reactiveness, when it becomes unmanageable, the urge to fix or fight, that's when a lot of people, I would recommend, that's when a lot of people really start considering getting professional help. When it feels debilitating, whatever that means to you. Whatever debilitating means to you, which usually means simply we can no longer function as we would like to. We can no longer access the quality of life that we desire. That's a great prompt to seek professional help. And then I also wrote down something that might feel debilitating linked to mom rage and maybe amplifies our fix or fight is losing sleep, low appetite, but we do need to eat. Or another big one is like when we can no longer easily transition from one task to another, either because we're so hyperfixated on the task we're doing or it's not just right until we finish it. Those are the things I would start to call yellow flags in our mom rage journeys that I would start to seek professional help. And I would also add to that, no, mom rage or not, postpartum OCD, whatever you want to call it, postpartum anxiety, any of that, no matter what we're calling it, no matter what perinatal mental health diagnosis we're talking about with what I'm about to say, sleep deprivation is like a direct correlation with those issues. It is a direct correlation with postpartum mental health issues, sleep deprivation. That's the number one indicator that we are going to struggle mentally. It doesn't say we are, but it is the number one indicator. It has the strongest correlation. So I would take that into consideration. Are you getting enough sleep? And then whatever we need to do to kind of process and brainstorm how to help get that need met for you.
Wow, that's really good. Those are really good like flags and indicators to look out for. When we do, I want to be sure to ask you specific questions at the end about what kinds of things and qualifications we should be looking for when we reach out to our provider. But was there anything else that you wanted to touch on as far as tools or things that we need to keep in mind?
That's a good question. It's kind of a big concept, but I think it's worth saying that one big thing that I work on with my mom rage clients is, what does a values-driven life look like for you? Because typically right now, we're not there. We are the reactive, impulsive, sense of urgency mom, but we would love to be the loving, patient, playful mom. And so if we can notice what our value system is and what a value-driven life would look like, and then this is the kicker, it's very much to help add clarity and a sense of direction for our behaviors, not to shame us that we're not there already. Right? So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm starting to get irritated. How do I want to behave even when I'm irritated? Even
Yeah.
when, right?
Yeah.
Even when the thought is like overwhelming or the feeling is overwhelming. If I can diffuse it a little bit and use some of these like frontline strategies we've been talking about, I want to say maybe it's firmness, maybe it's follow through, maybe it's gentleness, maybe it's support and nurture. Whatever that means for you as a mom, we're going to label those and figure out what that would behaviorally look like, even when we're anxious, even when we want to scream, even when we still know that that's our behavior and that's what we're striving for.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It really goes to show the importance of the work that you do because you're actively helping moms get there and do that. And how amazing is that, you know? It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yes. I
Just side note.
Yes, I really appreciate that. I really, really love what I do. It's come so organically for me. And then to add the clinical stuff on top of it and my own lived experience, it's just like, you know, I had a friend the other day I was talking to, and she was like, "Oh, I bet you're just so worn out talking to people about their problems all day." I was like, not really. Like I tell my husband, I was like, I feel like I have more of a day of sprinting work wise when I'm doing paperwork and marketing than if I have a 6 back-to-back session day. I feel peaceful. I feel just so
Oh,
like, yeah, because it's speaking my language. It comes so organically and it does yield results. There are good things happening
yeah.
and shifting with my clients, even in just one session. So it's a really beautiful thing to
Yeah.
see.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you again for sharing all
Yeah.
everything you just shared. Like I know that I will be implementing these and I have lots of mom friends that I know will be implementing these as well based on this
Yeah.
conversation. So thank you so much. And I want to end with as, you know, say we're listening to this and we see those red flags, we're like, okay, when I'm
Yeah.
in the heat of the moment, I'm not able to access these values and the way that I want to live in the heat of these moments. I want to be a joyful, patient, gentle, kind mom, even
Right.
when I'm angry or even when my kid
Mm-hmm.
is not listening, right?
Yes.
If you're ready to seek help, I'm going to use myself as an example because there was a time when I was like, maybe I should reach out to somebody. And I tried but I have TRICARE and I was trying to find someone with the correct qualifications through TRICARE, yada, yada, yada. I felt like I had a hard time finding someone because I was like, do I need to look for anger management? Do I need to look for a therapist specifically with postpartum? What are the specialties or qualifications that we need to be sure that we're looking for when we do reach out to somebody?
Yeah, great question. So, if I were to just give a very generic answer for people who need support but maybe can't access therapy, can't find the right therapist, don't have time or financial means to do so, there is an organization called Postpartum Support International, PSI. I think it might be like postpartum.net, but if you just put Postpartum Support International, they have everything's free. I think you can find clinicians that have specialized like training in postpartum mental health issues. And honestly, even if your kid is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like, and you still are having rage, I still think going to this and finding a therapist from their list could be an angle to take. But one thing that I really love is they have resources. And then what I love even more is they have free support groups. If you are in postpartum, you can access their support groups. And they're not just like support groups for postpartum mothers. It's like super, super niche down. I think one of their support groups is like support group for postpartum mothers of BIPOC children under the age of 2, for example. Like
Okay.
it's that
Amazing.
niche. I know, and it's so beautiful. They have support groups for dads, postpartum dads. They have it for miscarriages and infertility and even abortions. Because those things don't, if we carried a child, our body might be more prone or susceptible to having that perinatal mental health concern. So I do work with moms who have actually lost their babies and still are dealing with the aftermath, not just of the grief and loss, but of rage and hormone shifts and all those kinds of things. So it's a beautiful resource. You could definitely start there. Another search that I would maybe hand to people is to search for perinatal therapist. It's a specific certification on top of the clinical licensure that we have to have just to practice therapy or counseling. There's a thing called a perinatal therapist. To be clear, I am not one. I do not have a perinatal therapist certificate to my name. And I've asked my perinatal therapist friends if I should, and they're like, eh. And that's just one opinion. I'm sure there's a lot out there for why you could or couldn't, but for me, I really work on the acceptance side and the regulation side of, and in the trauma impact, birth traumas, right? There's so much going on there. So if you were to search for perinatal therapist, I think you might get somewhere with trying to find help for mom rage specifically. And then if you were to look for modalities, so what we practice from as a clinician to help with your symptoms of mom rage, I would look for things like acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. I would look for EMDR therapist. I would look for therapists that are familiar with something called somatic interventions, which is what we've been talking about as far as supporting your body and not just trying to think through it. It's a lot of body intervention. And then my personal favorite that we haven't talked about, but maybe that's a different time, is internal family systems therapy, or IFS, where we think of your mom rage as a part of you. And we get to know that part in a more loving way and build an actual relationship with that part, instead of our shame part jumping right in and be like, oh, there you go again. You're a bad mom. See how you just treated your own kid, right? Those are parts of us. And that's another angle here, is to start realizing that's a part of Erin. That's a part of Anna. That's not holistically me. That does not holistically define me. And I want to work with those parts of me to better live a values-driven life. So those are the things I would look for.
IFS.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's so helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Erin, if people want to follow you or reach out to you specifically, where is the best place to go?
Yeah, I love that.
Also, Erin is like TikTok famous. So for anybody, I think I have 38 followers on TikTok. She's my number one fan.
I do love, I think, oh my gosh, I can't wait for people to find you. I talk about you a lot because I think that you've got relatable content and I love it so much. Yes, I am one of the proud 38 followers. Mom Rage Therapy is my TikTok handle, and I would love for you to come on there. And that's another free resource. I have a playlist just called Mom Rage Hacks, and there's over 50 videos in there of beyond what we even talked about today.
It's good.
Thank you. I also have the guide or the ebook that you referenced a few times on my website. And I'll tell you my website in a second, but anyone can get that for free. If you type in, the code is like RAGE, RAGE, and I'll just completely waive the fee for you and you can have it for free. It's like 11 pages and it's got like step-by-step instructions of some things that you can do to help with your mom rage. And so my practice
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love doing it. So I love that. So I love education and I love not gatekeeping. And so I own Sunrise Therapy Services, specifically in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, because there are a few different clinics by that name across the U.S. And it's Sunrise Therapy Services, LLC.com. And you can find a lot of information there. You can find how to book with me, or I have other clinicians. I have contracted clinicians that work at my practice, and we all support postpartum mothers in our own way. There's a lot of ways to connect with them on my website, and then that digital download is also on my website if you're interested in that. TikTok and my webpage are probably the best ways to find me and connect with me.
Okay, perfect. We'll add everything in the show notes. Erin, thank you so much again. Thank you for your time and for being amazing. This is going to help so many women. So thank you so much.